The sea was calm that morning. Then, as the mist thinned over Hakata Bay, black dots appeared upon the horizon, and growing larger. At first, the Japanese samurai thought them to be merchant ships, but by the middle of that day, the truth had hit them hard. The Mongols had arrived to their shores. The silence fell swiftly over the onlooking samurai ranks. When the ships drew ever closer, the samurai's pride turned into worry for many. The samurai could now see the barbarians up close. They held longbows and armor of hide and iron. Oh, so many of them, each ship bristling with men, as if the sea itself had given birth to an army. The first Mongol ships reached the shallows. Their warriors leaped into the surf without hesitation. They started shouting words none of the samurai could understand. And then a terrible thunder was heard by all, explosions that split the air. The samurai had never heard such a sound. Smoke began to roll across the beach. Samurai screamed in horror as fragments tore through their armor and flesh. The Mongols were using iron shells. Men fell without heads and limbs, bodies still twitching, blood everywhere in the wet sand. The samurai tried to remember their training, which was to meet death without fear, to draw their blade as if cutting away all doubt within them. All around, samurai warriors shouted the names of their ancestors, urging their horses into the shallows, trying to push the Mongol invaders back. The Mongols met the samurai head-on in a single mass ready for combat, as one body, shields locked, spears thrusting in unison. Samurai arrows struck the Mongols' armor and fell uselessly. The Mongols fought in a manner not for glory, but to kill swiftly. The samurai started to realize that all that they had been taught of valor turned to dust before the iron discipline of the Mongol invaders. When dusk fell, the whole shoreline started to burn. The Mongols set fire to the samurai watchtowers and slaughtered the wounded where they lay. The cries of men and horses echoed throughout the night. With samurai begging Buddha for delivery, by midnight the tide carried the mix of Mongol and samurai dead back to the shore, all tangled with broken planks and banners. Some of the samurai warriors whispered that the gods had turned their backs on Japan. When dawn broke the next day, the sea was crawling with more Mongol ships, filling the horizon like a swarm of locusts. From the hills above Hakata, smoke curled upward from burned farms, along with the sight of death. Samurai warriors still stood along the coast, but their lines had thinned. Men who had fought through the night, now staring blank toward Hakata Bay, their armor worn, their spirits hollow. There was a summons of what remained of the samurai's mounted force. Then it swiftly headed down the slope toward the beach where the enemy had landed, an attempt to reclaim the beach with their katana blades. But the Mongols were waiting. Volleys of Mongol arrows soon cut through the air. This was not war as the samurai knew it. The Mongols advanced in perfect lines, archers behind spearmen, spearmen behind shield-bearers. Each step measured with no hesitation. The horsemen charged straight into them, their katana swords flashing like lightning. But before any of them could strike, they were immediately surrounded. A dozen spears at a time pierced them in an instant, with then dead bodies sagging from their saddles. The samurai shouted and surged forward, only to meet the same wall of shields. Whenever a Mongol fell, another immediately took his place. Both sides fought each other from morning until sunrise, yet the tide of the Mongol invaders never ceased. As the day wore on, the Mongols began hurling small clay bombs from their ships. They burst with blinding flashes, showering sparks and shards that tore through samurai flesh. The explosions sent horses rearing and men screaming. Later the shoreline had vanished under a curtain of smoke, with the cries of the dying. That night, the Mongols pulled their forces back to their ships. Afterwards, the samurai crept along the dunes and watched them in the moonlight. The Mongol campfires flickered across their ships' decks. Samurai survivors gathered among the ruins of their fortifications, The priests walk among the wounded, murmuring prayers while the sea continued to carry the bodies of their comrades back to the beach. That night the wind began to rise, and soon the sea grew restless, and the sound of the waves turned to thunder. Somewhere beyond the dark, the Mongols were anchoring their ships along the bay, their fires still glowing faintly through the incoming rain. None of the samurai not knowing what would come next. By midnight the wind howled down from the mountains and tore through the samurai encampments. Trees snapped and roofs were carried into the night. The sea roared ever louder. The Mongol ships could not be seen any longer, but there were cries that were heard, faint at first, then rising with terror. The sound of mass drowning. The samurai could then watch clearly and helplessly silent from the cliffs. Their priests began to chant prayers to the god of war, thanking him for this divine wind. To see one's enemy destroyed without the stroke of a blade was a strange kind of mercy as the sea swallowed them. When dawn came, the storm had spent itself. The sky was gray and still. At the shoreline the beach was littered with wreckage, broken shields and bodies tangled in seaweed. Some were samurai, most were Mongol. For all their cruelty, they had fought with courage. The storm had shown that men on both sides were helpless before the will of the sky. Samurai messengers soon arrived from Kamakura, bearing word that the Mongol invasion had failed. They said the gods had sent the kamikaze, the divine wind, to protect Japan. In the temples, bells rang through the night and prayers of thanks filled the air, yet among the warriors, few rejoiced. They had seen too much death to call it a victory, feeling not triumph, but exhaustion and a quiet shame that their salvation had come not from valor, but from a storm. Perhaps the Mongols will come again one day, but if they do, many of the gods remember the samurai as they did then. And may the kamikaze, the divine wind, rise once more.